Hello, everyone, and welcome again to the chat show with Subin. And with me is Subhash, and we'll be talking about a topic called as the top geopolitical scenarios at the present moment. So, over to you, Subhash.
Hi, Bino. Very good evening. How are you?
Good evening. I'm fine. How are you doing?
Doing good, Bino. So it's a very exciting topic we're going to speak about, Bino, today.
Yep.
See, Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee once famously said, like, you can change your friends, but you can't change your neighbors. Okay. So India is a land where people believe in cooperation, maintaining a very peaceful and a healthy relationship with all its neighbors. Okay. India has always been a peace-loving country. Uh, its economy is one of the fastest growing economy right now around the world. We have the world's eighth largest uh, military expenditure right now, third largest armed forces. We have the seventh largest economy uh, in respect to nominal rates. We have the third largest economy in terms of purchasing power parity. Still, we fold our hands and we greet and wish all our neighbors when they come to our country. Our motto of Atiti Devo Bhava, we actually treat all our neighbors, all the countries that we have a relationship with, in equivalent to God. So India is a regional power. India is right now in an embryonic global power. It has a capability of becoming one of the superpowers right now. But what I believe, a nation's destiny is linked to its neighborhood. And the highest priority is uh, right now is advancing friendly and cooperation with all its neighbors. Uh, all said and done, I would like you to just enlighten us more on what is the current happening as far as the geopolitical is concerned right now. Could you just elaborate on that?
Yes. So, this is something which is of interest not only to Indians but also all Asians, Europeans, Africans, Americans, the world over. Largely because of the fact that the Indian elephant has started moving and moving fast as far as economy is concerned, as far as its defense is concerned, on all spheres. India is on the move, and this has started taking place about a decade or so, and this is why we are going to be actually seeing the whole world and several countries looking at India in a much more favorable manner with a lot of interest. Now, when we talk of favorable manner, there are a lot of the countries which actually like democracy and freedom of speech and various such freedoms are the ones who are actually going to be showing interest towards India, not the ones who are rogue nations, like, for example, some of them like China, Pakistan, North Korea, and the likes. To an extent, even now, Turkey is starting to become rogue. So we are faced with a lot of challenges as a nation. India is, and this has been the case for the last few decades. Now, if we look at the secret, top secret Henderson Brooks report, which was based on the Indo-Sino conflict of 1962, that is the defining moment ever since that India started playing its part geopolitically. And at that point of time, if you remember, the United States was in a Cold War with Russia, or at that point of time, it was the USSR or the Soviet Union. And at that point of time, the US wanted an ally, and they were searching for one more big power to actually emerge and side with it. So they were looking at the largest populations, either it is China or India, who could in the future come and support it in its geopolitical ambitions as a superpower. Eventually, the USSR they broke up, and because of Gorbachev's policies and Perestroika came in, and then we've seen what has happened finally with Russia coming through. of that particular Cold War. And although there is no more Cold War at the moment, but the ambitions of USA as well as Russia are definitely there as individual nations. But to be very frank enough, I feel that the United States is the only superpower at the moment, with China trying to actually emerge as the next one. So the way that China has been wanting to actually, project itself has been completely in a very rogue manner, and it has got into turmoils with a lot of people around itself as far as its borders are concerned. So that is what actually brings India also into the equation, and with a big, largest democratic process in the world and the democracy in the world, the US considers it as its natural ally. And time and again, we have seen US wanting to actually ally with India, but they were not very sure because China happened to actually control world trade to a large extent. Uh, of course, I mean, there is also a precedent to it. Because of the Cold War, US wanted to create another force, and they actually wanted to engage with China economically and also wanted to actually have control over it militarily. So what they did was initially gave them a lot of support in terms of its development, and therefore, you had world trade taking place with China, and because of which China started growing faster than India. India had a very non-aligned movement, which was like, we do not want to interfere in anyone's affairs. We want to be having our own, policy, and we just want to have our own, individualistic, frame of policies for the entire world. So that is how, the Indian policy was, and because of which India could not take sides on either side for anyone. So in that case, US also did not side with India. So they went ahead and saw the opportunity of creating a big force with China, and China started developing. When China started developing, China also had its ambitions at the same time in the hinterland with India, China, and the other people. So China always thought of India as one of the major powers which can actually, give it a lot of problem in the future. So therefore, what they found was India was always at loggerheads with Pakistan ever since India's independence, and so they started supporting China and wanted to actually give them a lot of military support and otherwise. And in trying to do that, Pakistan started growing up. And in the meantime, Pakistan also was given support for its nuclear capabilities. Eventually, Pakistan went on to mirror what India started doing. So they started copying all that India would do. So that in this kind of a scenario, there was a geopolitical scenario which was gradually, heating up, and there were skirmishes, proxy wars being led by Pakistan against India, which was fueled by China, actually. And China eventually, what they did was their economy started becoming very strong, and they were dominating world trade. And to an extent, they became an economic superpower. May not be the overall superpower in the world, but economic superpower they did become, and therefore they started, throwing the weight around their hegemony around. And by doing that, what they did was they found India was just about starting to open up to the world economy and trying to become a force economically. Ever since the new government took its power, and in the year 2014, so China wanted to actually, prior to that, capture certain portions like Aksai Chin, then Arunachal Pradesh, and by calling Arunachal Pradesh as Southern Tibet, they wanted to actually have more and more such activities taking place on India's borders, including having a lot of development taking place on its side of the border with India. And when Modi actually came into the picture, the equation started changing, and Modi started doing a different kind of an act, which we will eventually, discuss in details as we go forward. So this is what the scenario has been as far as India, China, US, and the world economy and the world powers are concerned. And to an extent that, the US and India started forming a quad of force of four people, which is the US, Australia, Japan, and India, to counter China, which is what is happening currently and which has taken place. From here on, we will talk further. So I hope this is what has been in a nutshell of what has been happening all around as of now, till date.
Yeah, very, very nicely explained about the geopolitical scenario right now. You talked a lot about China. I'll just go back a little bit. See, in 1954, Chinese Prime Minister Chow En-lai and Indian Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, they signed a Panchsheel agreement. Now, according to the Panchsheel agreement, 5 adopted principles were there. And I'll just mention those 5 principles. One was a mutual respect for each other's territorial integrity and sovereignty. Number 2 was mutual non-aggression. Number 3 was mutual non-interference in each other's internal affairs. Number 4 was equality and mutual benefits. And number 5 was peaceful coexistence. Now, my question to you, Binu, is right now, what is China trying to do? And we've been seeing it for the past 3 to 4 months. We all know the scenario that's been happening. So we just elaborate on what is China actually trying to do right now?
Okay, so in order to answer this particular question, I need to take you back again to the Panchsheel Agreement and how that Panchsheel Agreement also, started forming. It was because of the Indo-Chinese War of 1962 that it actually happened, and the Defense Review of India, they also actually have come up with a lot of findings that they have been noting down and have been supplying information to the Prime Minister's office and the central government from time to time in order to frame policies with respect to China and other geopolitical issues. So when we look at that particular aggression that happened and the war which eventually took place with China in 1962, thereafter we gradually got into an agreement that we both countries, China and India, should largely look at doing trade and try to actually cut out all kinds of animosity with each other. And in doing so, they gradually moved to an extent that in 1993 there was this peace and tranquility agreement which was signed. So the year 1993 is of particular importance because of the fact that just 4 years prior to that, in the month of May of 1989, what actually happened led to this particular agreement of peace and tranquility. What actually happened is the US at that point of time, they were gradually, at loggerheads with China. And China actually, they had an embassy in Serbia, in Belgrade, and that particular embassy was bombed by the US forces. And when that happened, the Chinese actually, at that point of time in history, took the decision to eventually get back at the US in terms of wanting to become a power and then wanting to get back at the US. So they started a process, a gradual process. And in trying to find out allies for China, China wanted to actually get into a situation where, we have signed the Panchsheel agreement. So they were trying to understand, is India going to be that ally that we are looking for in Asia? And then, we both actually can counter this, powerful country called the United States. So in trying to do that, they agreed to that kind of policy. And what they did was, India and China, they both entered into a lot of trade agreements as part of the Panchsheel agreement that you discussed about. So a lot of trade started happening, and so much so that India's largest trade partner was China, and eventually it became China that we did most of the business with. When that actually happened, India actually had a big trade deficit going. I mean, it was something to the extent about 50 billion, 47 billion to an extent prior to when Mr. Modi took office. So with that kind of a huge trade deficit with China, Indian organizations were largely just importing most of Chinese material. So this is something which actually was in favor of China. China was living off India and making money off India. So what eventually happened is China started seeing this, that they have got the upper hand, and in 1993 with this peace agreement which was signed, they continued to actually have India as a trade partner, and they started getting the advantage of trade. But militarily also, they started putting their forces at India's borders, and they were gradually wanting to overcome India's power. So they also engaged India and started bleeding India or the Indian forces by making Pakistan also, fight a proxy war with India. And that is also something that, we have seen taking place in the northwestern borders. And at the same time, in the southern part of basically the Indian Ocean and the Indo-Pacific region, what has been happening is that China has been building up their influence over very large extent across many countries out there, to an extent that they eventually also came up to Sri Lanka to build their port. So these are the kind of things that they were trying to do as a string of pearls, as it is called, that China wanted to actually create and strangulate India from all sides. So it was a game which was very cynically and very surreptitiously played by China. It was a very smartly played move, but India and the previous regimes were actually, going without any kind of, doubts in their minds as far as China was concerned. There were a lot of trade agreements going on without much knowing that eventually what is this going to lead to. And so now what we have seen is that China, first of all, attacked India in Doklam recently, which was against the agreement of peace, without wanting to actually, there's so many years since 1975, there was no fight which happened. There was no bullet which was fired. Even in Doklam also, there was no bullet fired, but they eventually started wanting to kill Indian soldiers. So they did that aggression, which India gave it back strongly. And China could not take that. So what they did was they amassed about 1 lakh of their forces at the Galwan Valley and the Sangpo river basin. And by doing that, what they were also doing is they were building up embankments. Uh, and they actually did a lot of defense related establishments out there, outside of the Indian border and the Chinese side. And they started also thereafter making intrusions into the Indian side. When that started happening, I mean, they could not fathom that there was a very strong leader having a big vision in Mr. Modi. And what Mr. Modi eventually did was he gave the freedom to the armed forces by organizing a CDS, a Central Defense System and Command. So that command was with Mr. Bipin Rawat, Major General Bipin Rawat, and he took the decision that, we will actually not let China have its way. We will give it back to them. And that's exactly what happened in Galwan Valley, when the Chinese forces, they actually killed 20 Indian soldiers, and India gave it back very, very strongly. So now what we need to take a look at is very, very simple. We need to be very wary of these Chinese, because they can never be trusted anymore. We have been trusting them all along as a very good neighbor. I mean, we always had this policy of never going out of our borders to go and, attack any country. That has always been the case with India ever since time immemorial. But we've seen aggression taking place from outside. Now China has done this. Now India has changed its defense policy finally. All these years and decades, India had a policy of defense policy. That has now changed in the present regime to an offensive defense policy. And this is official. And this policy is the reason why the CDS was formed, the Central Command, which is going to be taking care of all the three commands, the Air Force, the Indian Army, and the Navy. And there is this one person who will take a coordinated view of things and then be able to, take decisive action against any aggression by any of India's neighbors or anyone else in particular. So this is what is the present moment scenario. We are looking at China with very, very, alert eyes. We are looking at the South China situation. Why South China is important to India? Because a few years back, in the 90s, Vietnam actually gave India about 7 oil blocks in that particular region. And because of that, China did not want India to be having a presence. China started becoming aggressive towards its neighbors in that particular region, against Japan, against Vietnam, against Taiwan. Even they started becoming aggressive towards their own, partly quasi Chinese government in Hong Kong, and so on and so forth. So much so that the world powers like Russia and US they started taking a look at this particular scenario, and they started supporting these countries, especially Taiwan, South Korea, Japan. And what did China do? China went ahead and they wanted to actually show themselves as the uh, biggest power in the world. They did not want to actually, have the US to be called as the only superpower. So a very, very highly ambitious, over ambitious, I would actually say, China wanted to actually, go ahead and even cause issues with Australia down south, down under. And they also actually went all about creating tension in these southern areas, basically the Indian Ocean areas, for many other countries like Philippines, for example. So when these kind of things started happening, even Taiwan started retaliating back. Japan started, retaliating by actually doing economic retaliation by asking their companies to be, brought back into Japan from China. So many of these things started happening. So this is the kind of thing which is now the present scenario as far as China is concerned, and India is now aligned with the United States, and we are looking at a scenario of wait and watch policy for China to actually take up any such misadventure. India would be actually be able to in a position to answer back very, very strongly. So that is what as far as China is concerned.
Yeah, Binu. Actually, China is right now biggest threat for India. That was very nicely explained by you. But our, I think, one in Pakistan. We all know in 1947, India and was partitioned, and the country Pakistan was born. So actually, we share a lot of things similar. Both the countries, we actually share a lot of historical, share the linguistic, share the cultural heritage. Lots of things that are similar to each of our country. Now, with continued violence in Kashmir, then height of terror activities all around the country from Pakistan, and also uh, from its supposed support-based militant groups that this actually support Pakistan government. There are a lot of tensions, there are a lot of concerns between two nuclear armed countries. What I would like to ask you, Binu, is uh, do we give importance to Pakistan right now, or because of the continued aggression that is coming over from China, do we give importance to China now? Do we give less importance to Pakistan? Because Pakistan has been continuously, irrespective of China doing that, continuous terror attack has been happening in our country because of Pakistan. Should we give importance to Pakistan now?
Well, see, Pakistan. It's basically not that important a country for India to be actually, giving it so much of importance to. We've moved on from those days when we were always looking at whether Pakistan would attack India or whether not, or what do we do, and all of those kind of things, the things that they used to do in Kashmir and all of that. See, at the moment, with Kashmiris and in Kashmir, the ground situation is that normalcy has returned. It is because now we've got a leader who is actually in charge of the country. He is able to actually, take decisive action and decisions. And because of that, we are seeing that, there is normalcy in Kashmir. Now, this is something that Pakistan just cannot fathom. They just cannot take it. And because of that, the present leadership in Pakistan is actually hell bent on wanting to bring Kashmir as its one and only foreign policy, and the biggest such activity that they want to do internationally is just focus on Kashmir and talk about Kashmir and nothing else. I mean, they don't have any proper international, activity to do at the moment in the United Nations or wherever, even in the Organization of Islamic Countries, if you look at it. So that is something that has actually largely made most of Pakistan's allies, even like Saudi Arabia, for example, uh, uni- uh, United Arab Emirates, for example, they've all started sidelining Pakistan from these kind of discussions, and they have seen that Pakistan is actually boring them with the talk on Kashmir, which is nothing that useful as far as world economies or geopolitical thing is concerned. They view it as India's internal issues. Now, that could largely be the reason that India has had a lot of impetus when it comes to relations with some of the Arab nations like Saudi Arabia and, for example, United Arab Emirates, uh, because India sees the opportunity of the plummeting oil prices internationally. Internationally, oil prices never have in the last 5 years, if you have noticed. This is very important because in the last 5 years, oil prices have not gone up above 100 US dollars per barrel. And there are several reasons to it. Not many countries are actually finding oil reserves like Venezuela, Russia, U.S. Shale gas is also one of the biggest finds. So because of a lot of surplus of oil which is there in the international markets, it is no longer that the Arab countries have the exclusive reserves as far as oil is concerned. And because of that, the oil prices have been going down, and the potential income that these Arab countries would have actually made has gone down. And India sees the opportunity to actually, have a way with these Arab people to sideline Pakistan. So it was a very, very strategic international move, and this is something about diplomacy that Indians have done really exceedingly well. And we've cornered Pakistan from the OIC countries also. We have also ensured that countries like Malaysia, who are starting to support Pakistan on the issue of Kashmir, even got sidelined, and their prime minister actually lost out, largely because they were wanting to side with Pakistan. India stopped all oil imports from Malaysia. We will come to that later. So these are kind of reasons which has actually created a situation for Pakistan to really get into a situation where they are not having a great economy. There's a lot of issues, internal issues, divisive forces within their country. People are dejected with the current regime, and because of that, what is happening is Pakistan is in dire straits. The only ally that they can find is in Turkey and in China. And China is, by the way, trying to actually make the most of this situation with Pakistan and trying to get more and more of Pakistan's resources under its control, which is what it is actually doing. Economically, it is strangulating Pakistan. So for us, I mean, we don't really have to care about Pakistan. It is just imploding, and the demise is on the way. So Pakistan is only that much. We don't have to worry too much about it. If necessary, we can take care of it, but that is all as far as Pakistan is concerned. Yeah.
Uh, that's very well explained, Bino. Let's see. So there's other SAARC countries also. For example, Nepal. Uh, Nepal actually depends a lot on India for its economic support and transit facilities. India contributes a lot to its Nepal's economic and social developments. Still, Nepal, I think, recently created a lot of hurdles for India. We talk about Bangladesh. In fact, Bangladesh is very good neighbor for us. In fact, we have helped Bangladesh. We have fought together with Bangladesh and helped liberated from West Pakistan in 1971. Then we share a lot of common tradition. Yes, there's some dispute with the Ganga, but I think we just uh, mutually we agree to the problem and we solve it. That problem, whatever they have with us. We talk about Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka, in fact, we have a lot of cultural and historical and religious ties with Sri Lanka. Uh, I think on the request of the Sri Lankan government, we sent a peacekeeping force also to restore normalcy in Sri Lanka. But in 1990, the peacekeeping force returned back because they couldn't restore the normalcy. But we tried to help Sri Lanka in that way. Because of that, we even lost one of our prime ministers. Now, what I would like to ask you, Binu, is what are the scenario with these neighbors? Are they with India, or are they like with like not supporting India? What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, see, India wanted to form a bloc called as SARC. Now, SARC was formed not for any kind of power equations to be created or any of those kind of things. It was largely to actually get uh, our neighbors together on a common platform. The common platform was cultural in nature. Uh, the common platform was trade in nature largely. These were kind of things, even sports for that matter. So whatever it took to actually bring nations together, that was what was actually the reason behind formation of SARC. It wasn't to create a bloc like the Allied forces or the Axis powers or any of those kind of things. We're not looking at that. So largely at the insistence of India and the initiative of India, we formed this particular bloc. But we found that Pakistan has been always been the bad fish in the pond and always have been doing troubles, creating troubles for the others, and they were trying to interfere in the functions of SARC. Now, having said that, if we just set aside Pakistan and if you look at the other nations, we are looking at nations like Sri Lanka, uh, Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, even Myanmar to an extent. Yeah. So these are kind of nations who are there who are actually having a lot of cultural affinity towards India. And we go a long way, as we all know, several centuries and because of which even today most of these countries they are friendly in nature with the exception of maybe if you look at the recent incidences which with Nepal, for example. I mean, it was largely political in nature. It was more of Prime Minister Oli in Nepal pandering to the tastes of China in order to get some kind of advantage in the political theater of his country. That is all. He wanted to continue staying in power, and he wanted the help of China. So he wanted to deflect the attention of the masses and to create an absolutely new kind of a thought process in Nepal, saying that okay, bigger than India is China, so we are creating something big, and I, being the prime minister, I am doing something for our nation. So we are on the road to prosperity. But that he did not actually realize is at the cost of the great friend called India, who has always been actually, treating it as its little brother. And we had an open door policy. There was hardly any visa that was required. We could just cross the borders up and down, do trade and everything. But with China, China is going to actually strangle it like it always did with all other smaller nations. So Nepal is actually wary of that, and India has also actually, tried to calm Nepal down, make it understand. So now that process is yielding results, which is a good thing. When it comes to countries like Bangladesh, see, Bangladesh is on the road to super fast recovery as far as its economy is concerned. It is growing at a very, very frenetic pace. It is the largest garments exporter in the world. It is also, it has cut down its poverty levels drastically. Literacy has gone up. Uh, if you go take a look at Dhaka as a city, it is one of the largest cities in the world currently. Yet at the same time, there are certain cross-border, issues that are niggling both the countries, but those are at a very local level that can be managed. And both India and Bangladesh have realized that we don't need to get into skirmishes. We can do trade and prosper, which is unfortunately not what the other neighbor Pakistan thinks. So, which is why Pakistan is in the current sorry state of affairs that it is currently in. When it comes to Thimphu, uh, Bhutan has been, the Druk nation has been doing exceedingly well as far as a very strong supporter of India. Now, when Doklam happened, you should have seen how Bhutan actually sided with India and said that we have to drive the Chinese out, and which is a great neighbor would have done something like that. It is our natural ally, and we are with them always. Uh, okay. Apart from that, yes, Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka were wanting to become a bit ambitious in nature. They actually bit the Chinese bait and gave them the Bangkok port facility to the Chinese to build at the cost of the Indian contractors. So when that happened, their economy started tanking, and China started taking advantage, and to an extent that they've now gone into debts with the Chinese. So now Sri Lanka has realized their folly, and now they are wanting to come out of that kind of a scenario. And India has been trying to help Sri Lanka also out of that kind of a scenario. When it comes to Myanmar, yes, Myanmar is more of a ASEAN country, now part of ASEAN plus six, wherein India is also a partner. So overall, it is a go in between SAARC and the ASEAN plus six countries. So it is a very friendly nation to most others in the vicinity. So there is no threat from Myanmar, except from the Rohingyas, who could be a potential threat to India when it comes to their population getting into the Rohingya population getting into the porous Indian borders. So that is the only little bit of a issue, but not with the Burmese or the Myanmarese people as such. So overall, all other neighbors, India is absolutely having sacrosanct relations wonderfully well, except unfortunately Pakistan. But for Pakistan, I would only say something towards the end of this particular discussion.
Yes,
Yeah.
see, do you think India is going to come out from all the issues that is going on right now without any problems? Or do you see an uncertain future? Because the present government, I think, has a friendly neighbor approach, because Prime Minister Modi went to Pakistan, Chinese Premier came down to India, we had the Nepal Prime Minister also, then we had the Bhutan Prime Minister coming down to India. So we have this friendly neighborhood approach that this present government is actually advocating. But we also see that the issues that has been happening all around the borders that is happening right now. So do you think that, do you feel that there's an uncertain future amongst the neighbors that is around us, or do you feel the situation is going to improve?
See, the answer to this question is something I would say quite unheard of, that has never been discussed before. At least I haven't come across. But I would like to put forward as a solution for lasting peace, not only in Asia but also worldwide. Now, this is something when we look at Pakistan wanting to create issues, China wanting to create issues. If we just set aside one particular thing, that is, if China and Pakistan do not attack India with nukes, with nuclear weapons, then the entire situation can be managed through diplomatic ties and diplomatic efforts, taking world powers into confidence, and we can actually save the day and the planet. Now, in this, India and internal Indian politics is going to be playing a major role. Now I'll tell you how it is. There are certain elements who may want to actually support China from India because of political reasons. I mean, see, China is a communist nation. India's got communism, also communist parties. So communism, in its purest form, actually augurs well for the poor and the peasants. And if it is restricted to only that and not bad politics, then it's a good thing for the farmer community. India is largely still an agricultural nation, so it is a good thing. Yet, if some leaders would actually support China at the cost of Indian interests, then that is something that we need to actually regulate and control. Okay, having said that, with Pakistan, if you look at why Pakistan, I mean, why was that country formed? It was on religious reasons that they wanted to form the nation. So we had partition, we saw so much of violence and so much of killings, millions of people. I mean, something like about 1.5 million people died during partition. And it is like both sides died unnecessarily, but bloodshed. Now, the people, those who stayed back in India, the Muslim community who stayed back in India, they actually decided to, agree to a secular lifestyle, and to agree with the concept of a united India. What can be even more better than that? This is the very important point and message which I would like to actually also put forward as a solution to lasting peace between India and Pakistan. Indian Muslims, who number far more than that of Pakistan and who are actually largest, second largest in population apart from Indonesia. I mean, such a big community in India can actually take the lead to impress upon Pakistan, saying that, boss, look at it. I mean, all other nations, Arabic nations, are siding with India except for you, Turkey, and to a certain extent, Malaysia. Otherwise, all of them, they are actually supporting India, even in the United Nations. Why are you doing this? That is because you are always thinking the religious angle. Take religion out of the way. Look at us in India. We've always lived for so many decades together. And we would like the Indian concept of uh, nation formation to be there in Pakistan also. The day you accept that, you will also prosper. Let us do trade together and give prosperity to our people. That will have peace in each and every person's life and minds. The people, those who actually get into doing those kind of terror activities, are largely because of they are deprived people. They do not have the bare essentials, and those are the unfortunate people who are being taken for a ride by the ISI of Pakistan and the establishments there. This mindset in Pakistan has to change. Indian Muslims as a community, we should actually, help other nations, including and very specifically Pakistan, to understand this point that India as a concept is the concept that will work in a multicultural world, and that is the only way forward for lasting peace to happen. That is all I would say, and I hope the world is a safer place for our tomorrow and our children's tomorrow.
Yes, Binu. See, this discussion can go on and on and on. But what you said, one line, what you said is we've lived for decades as a peace-loving country. Uh, I would again come back to the phrase which Atal Bihari Vajpayee sir started. We can change our friends, but we cannot change our neighbors. But yes, we are trying our level best to make our neighbors our friends. So we have put our hands forward. Now it is their prerogative to give their hands to us. Uh, we would like to conclude the session. Binu, would you just conclude it?
Yes, so I mean, it was a wonderful discussion. I mean, some questions were really, insightful in nature, and I had to dig deep and refer to history and certain very specific moments in history, very defining moments in history, to actually, come up with the right kind of answers. I hope I was right in many of the answers, and I'm sure the viewers, you would love this content, and if you do love this content, please to share it with more and more people. Let it go throughout the whole world and let people understand what it needs and takes to actually have lasting peace in the whole world. So, in saying so, do take care of all of you. Do take care of your families and everyone in society. And wish you all the best. Take care. God bless. Bye bye.